Hi, you've reached the Talking Racewalking podcast. It's all about racewalking, of course. It's talking to racewalkers from around the world about racewalking. Join me, Noel Payne, a amateur racewalker in Canada, as I talk to elites, Olympians, record holders, masters walkers, and anybody who's out walking as fast as they can. Hi, so this is a section where I'd actually be talking to someone, a race walker. So this is where you can come in. If you know a race walker, you're a race walker, and you have an amazing story, I want to hear from you. So reach out, let's chat, let's get walking and talking. Hey everyone, and welcome to the very first podcast episode of Talking Racewalking. I am Noel Payne, your host, and I've got an amazing guest today. I've got Coach Carmen, also known as Carmen Jackinsky, a U.S. race walker, a coach, and founder and creator of a race walk shoe. Carmen, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'd love to have you. You were one of the first people I met in the race walking world when I was going from runner to very confused and frustrated race walker. So yeah, it's great to have you on. I thought you were a perfect guest for the very first episode.
Well, thanks for having me. I do remember you had a lot of questions. It was fun.
Yeah, I was very runner type personality where I was like, I want to know how to go faster. Just yeah. I know the technique, but how do I go faster? So that was me.
Well, I think you found it because you've been quite fast.
Well, and I'm just trying to get fast before I get too old and the time comes down, not because I'm not fast anymore, but just because I get old and crotchety. So
although I don't know, you look around, I don't think you can get too old to race walk. It's one of the beauties of our sport.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. And anybody who's listening here, I'm assuming is either a race walker or interested in the sport. So yeah, I agree. Race walking is something you can do for a long time. I mean, and if you're not walking or race walking, you can just walk, until your 80s, 90s or above. So
I was just thinking the other day, I don't know another sport, a cardio-based sport, that has a longer longevity for high performance, not just being able to do it, but being able to do it well. And I don't remember the Spaniard, the guy who's been in 5 Olympics.
Oh,
he's
yes.
no spring chicken, and he actually finishes in the top 5 or 6. So you can't just say, well, you can do it when you get old, but you'll be in the back of the pack. But hey, at least you're still in there giving it your all, right? But these people are still competing at high levels, which is really impressive. And it should give people hope if they want to still compete and need a sport that they can do. Like, there's so many sports where you're done by a certain age, and football is an example. Any sport that has a lot of high impact and contact, and you get injuries that you physically cannot do the sport anymore. And race walking is just one of those that you can just keep going on and on and on and do really well. So to me, that was a great place to land, because I hadn't finished what I wanted to do in my other sport, and I had Olympic aspirations. But when I didn't get what I wanted, I was blessed with failure in that regard, and I just kept going back because I wasn't too old. So I kept trying, and it's just kept me in really good shape, just because I kept trying to reach that higher level. And I hate to think what I'd be like if I had gotten success early on, left the sport, what I'd be doing, how much I'd weigh. I mean, I'm just grateful for the health that I have right now, and it's because of the sport.
Well, and that's a perfect segue into the first question that I was going to ask you about, of course. And you mentioned your other sport. Now that's gymnastics, right? You were quite competitive in gymnastics.
Yep. Yeah.
So how did you get from gymnastics to race walking? How was that transition, or how did you discover the sport?
I had a fall when I was a gymnast that was a pretty much of a career-ending fall. I had also had an injury to my hand, which was not going to allow me to do the sport anymore. And it was a devastating thing because I love gymnastics. and wasn't ready to retire and was quite young. I was just learning how to mentally prepare for races and or competitions, how to overcome fear. And I was just coming into my own in the sport when I had to finish and was just devastated. And I remember the doctor saying that I'll never be an athlete again, which was very devastating. He said, you can walk or you can swim. Not being a water person, I decided to pick the lesser of the two evils and eventually picked up walking. I met my first race walker through work. He was one of our US team members, and he was a prolific race walker, but he didn't teach it to me. He just exposed it to me. And then I saw it in a magazine. There was some race walk lesson. I was in PE class in college, and it was a cardio weight training class, which I figured was just lifting weights. And then the teacher said, okay, we're going to go out to the track to run. And I said, whoa, 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 can't do that. Doctor said, no more running for me. And she said, well, you can walk. And I thought, no, I don't think so. I don't want to get passed by all these runners. I used to be a high level athlete, right? I'm not going to be a walker. And so she said, well, just give it a try. If it hurts your back, I'll give you a pass to get out. And I thought, okay, this is great. All I have to do now is go as hard as I can, hurt my back so I can legitimately say, hey, look, this really, really bothers my back. I need to get a pass. So I was basically trying to get out of walking. And turns out I was the fastest in the group. It was one of those things like, wow, I can do this. This is fun. And so I ended up continuing. That's when I discovered the race walking class. Lizzie Kemp Salvato was teaching them down at Mission Bay in San Diego. So I took her 4-week course, finished June 4th, 1986. She did my first time trial. I did my mile in just over 10 minutes.
Wow.
And she said, woohoo, that's pretty quick. So I joined her group and started training with her and their group, and eventually met up with another coach named Jim Coots. And he was out of Long Beach, and he'd come down once a month to work with a group in San Diego and coach with him for quite a number of years. He was a very good technician and kind of got me started with the competition and all of that. So that was my start.
That's great. No, it's interesting. Everybody's got a different reason for sort of stumbling across the sport. Not mine was the pandemic and
yeah.
That type of thing. So you got into it and you got competitive with it as well. Yeah. And the other thing is, so because we don't have a huge amount of time on this podcast, I want to kind of touch those 3 points here I've got with you, which is you became a race walker,
yeah,
and then you became passionate about it. Mm-hmm. How did you start making race walking shoes? I mean, you're the founder of Reshod.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How did you go from race walker and competitive and really you have a passion for the sport. Yeah. How did you decide you wanted to make shoes for race walkers?
Well, when I was a gymnast, I made my own leotards. So I know it's a big surprise, but I used to, back in the 70s, Lycra was just becoming available. So the fabric, the spandex fabric that is being made. So when I went to the stores, you could buy leotards in ballet pink, navy blue, or black. Those are the only colors that they came in. And so they were just kind of starting to change them up when I was in the 70s, late 70s. And so I would go buy fabric and I designed a bunch of leotards and I made patterns out of the newspaper and sewed them. And so becoming a gymnast or a race walker was kind of just an extension of that. There were people who were modifying their shoes. There weren't a lot of them, but I was paying attention to that. People were pulling the toe back. They didn't call it toe spring, but they'd figured out, hey, if we can get this to roll a little bit better. And back then, the shoes were made out of EVAs. There weren't a lot of things inside of them yet. And so they were really easy to play around with. And so I'd bevel the heel on them to get a little better roll, and just trying different shoes, I started to discover that different densities made a difference on how the heel impacts. And so I was just kind of playing around a little bit with that, but never had an intention to start a brand until I moved to Oregon. And my husband and I moved here in 1992 and just happened to move into an apartment which was a half mile from Nike's world headquarters. So I got a job there as a temp and started working there and kind of got the bug. And I just kind of went from there. trying to figure out where to get components and how to play around with stuff, and just had kind of figured at some point a brand would be interested in doing a race walk shoe, because at the time there were actually a lot of race walk shoes being made by big brands. Nike had the EXP, Reebok had a shoe, Avia had a shoe. They were working with Ron Laird on a shoe, and I'm probably blanking on some of the others. So Reebok, Avia, Adidas had a shoe, Nike had a shoe. So to me, it wasn't a long stretch to get a big brand to want to make a race walk shoe. But there's more to it than that. It's a little more complicated than just going to them and saying, "Hey, would you make this?" and then having it done. And it didn't happen. And again, it was kind of like not ever getting to the Olympic trials, not ever having found a big brand. I just continued to keep working on it. And at some point, I went to work for a footwear brand. Columbia Sportswear hired me, and I worked in their footwear development team and was able to go to China, see how manufacturing worked. I was the fit and wear test coordinator for a couple of years. So I learned all about the fit, all the components. I'd worked in the legal field too for 10 years. So I had learned about patents and trademarks and started filing. So it seemed like everything I had in my past just kind of worked right towards, making all the things I needed to build a brand. So long process. It was a 30-year process, actually, from the time I started in 1992 till now. It's 31 years. So
Wow.
it's been a long journey. But I'll tell you what, when I moved to Portland, I didn't have anyone to train with. So going out and testing shoes was really one of the things that kept me engaged in the sport. When I lived in San Diego, there was a real group of elite athletes. So when I'd go to a race, I could walk a 55-minute 10K and come in last place in my age group, which was kind of discouraging. When I came to Oregon, I'd win every race, but there was nobody else in my age group. So I was on the other end of the spectrum. And so getting shoes and trying different configurations just gave me something to get out of bed in the morning and say, oh, okay, well, I'll just go try out these shoes. And I used a shoe repair shop, and Deke was his name. He would carve off the midsole, outsole, and I'd get some foam parts and glue them together and say, hey, put these on here. And then I'd go test them out, maybe race in them, give them a name, and then document them. And just kind of did that for a number of years. So
I think that's really cool. I've got a little bit of a footwear background myself. I at a university worked in a lot of specialty running shops, and then I worked in some orthopedic places where I made orthotics, but we would often modify shoes. And as a kid, I was the kid that was like, my running shoe would be finished, so I'd then take it out and cut it apart and look at what was inside and everything else. So I can see myself doing exactly what you did. So kindred spirits to a certain degree.
yes.
So
yeah, Susan Heiser, Ian Watley's wife, she and I trained together. She lived out here for a while, and we trained and raced together. We went to the World Cup team trials back east, and I had a pair of shoes that I had cobbled up, and the density was a little too soft, so I needed some lateral stability. So I was shoe gooing the side panels, and they were actually still drying on my luggage outside the car rental while she was picking up the car because I needed them for the next day. But I was always too. It was kind of like last minute. Deke would get to my shoes, but it was always like he'd get them the last minute. The glue wasn't quite dry or whatever. And so I violated that. Do not try something new in a race rule over and over and over. But I didn't care because in my head, I figured, hey, I'm not one of the top athletes. I'm not going after the Olympic medal yet. So, I've got some time just to kind of play around with stuff. And who knows? It's like the guy who invented the Formula 409. He did 408 tries before he got to 409.
oh, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I just kind of tinkered around with different stuff till I found what I wanted and what worked.
Well, and you've got a shoe that works for you and a lot of other walkers, and I think that's cool. I mean, one of the first shoes that I put on to race walk was one of your reshod shoes. I've tried the blue ones and the red ones you have as well. I mean, that was basically, I think it might have been the second shoe. I just grabbed whatever I had to start with, but then really wanted to try a shoe design for race walkers, and I took yours out. And when I first started, it was perfect for my style and technique as I was learning. So, and I've talked to lots of other walkers who love your shoes and use them. So,
Well, and unfortunately, one of the things that changed throughout this whole process is the technique. So there's a lot of people who heel toe walk, which is what they were predominantly doing when I came up with the design. But then a lot of people have gravitated over to what I call the straight-legged running style, where you're really kind of getting propelling off the heel and then off the toe. And my shoes aren't designed to do that well because the heel is firm, but it's that way on purpose. And I do have a plan to make a shoe for that. The problem is the market size for that is so small, I can't come out with that first. And what I needed to do was come out with a shoe that really fits the general walking population first, so that I can establish myself as a walking brand with a legitimate technology, and then I can go into the more racy shoe. And it's there, it's in my head. I've got it. I know exactly how to make it. I just don't have the funding for it yet, but it'll come.
well, maybe somebody here in this podcast will think of funding it because I think it's a great
Sure,
idea. I'm newer
sure.
to the race walking world, and I see a need for it.
Yeah,
I see
yeah,
people using running shoes that
yeah.
work, but they're not designed for race walking. I mean, Ian
Right,
Watley basically tells me that it's
right,
whatever works for you, but I can still
right,
see the need to have something, a shoe that still catered a bit more to that
right,
the race walk gait. So there's
right.
definitely a need. And I agree with your shoes. For anybody who's out
Mm,
there, go find Reshod.
mm, mm,
Try out Carmen's shoes because
mm,
there's a shoe for every foot. There's a
mm,
shoe for every style and technique. And what I found is exactly what she was saying, what you were saying, Carmen, is that
mm,
I think for a lot of the masters race walkers, a lot
mm.
of the recreational race walkers, and a certain style, your shoe is amazing. You can feel the
Thank you.
rocker and it works.
Thank you.
But like running shoes,
Mm,
there's never one shoe for everybody.
right. And it's
But yeah,
insulting when a walker goes into a shoe store and says, "Hey, I'm a serious walker." And they say, "Well, just go wear some running shoe." And it's I don't think they mean to be demeaning, but it is just a little dismissive to say you don't warrant technology. Just go wear one of these shoes over there. Go find something on the wall. Find what works for you. It's really more about fit. You can walk in anything. Well, technically, you can run in anything too. You could run in cowboy boots if you wanted to, but is that really the best thing for you? And it's the same with walking shoes. If you want to be good at walking, let's find a technology that's legitimate. And I get that people need different things, but we need a brand that actually speaks and advocates for the walking community, and we just don't have it yet. And I hope to get that. And I think there's enough groundswell coming that I think we're going to see it.
yeah,
So
I would love to see it. I would love to see it. So we've gone from Walker Carmen, we've gone to footwear Carmen.
yeah.
So where did you find the time to become a coach? So how did that happen? So you've been the
Yeah.
passionate race walker. You definitely have the passion. You are carving shoes out in the
Yeah.
in the back, and you've made a brand and
Yeah.
and a company for yourself. Where do you find the
Yeah.
time to coach?
That's a tricky question. I haven't been full-time coaching my entire career, but Jim Coots taught us stuff and I shadowed him at the beginning. So I kind of learned how to coach race walking through him. When I moved to Oregon, I didn't coach for many, many years. And in 2001, got a call from someone at Nike asking me to coach some Portland to Coast relay teams that they sponsored. And so it wasn't too intrusive as far as time wise, but then that led to another group that wanted coaching. So I ended up, at another corporation and then another corporation nearby. So I had three corporations just within a 3 mile radius of my house looking for coaching. And then Portland's Metro was doing a walk there program. They hired me to do some walk stuff. So it really wasn't something I pursued, but it just kind of came came along. And I do a lot of personal coaching too, a lot of groups that just, want to come to track practice. And it's just, it's kind of come to me. It was not something that I pursued, but I really enjoy it. I think I enjoy it as much as I like competing. And then I like creating shoes too. I don't, it's a perfect triad. I enjoy them all at different times. And, I get in a mood to write. You know how it is. You like
Yeah.
to write. Sometimes you have writer's block. You want to go for a run and think about it. That's kind of the way it is with me. Sometimes I coach. I learn from my athletes, and I learn what they want. I get feedback from them, and then I go do some product creation, but then I need quiet time for me, and I get out and go for a walk, and that seems to have a purpose too in the big scheme of things. So
Oh, I love it. No, that's perfect. Yeah, I can see your passion for everything you do. And what keeps you going? I mean, you've competed, you're coach, you're making the shoes. What is it that really keeps you involved with race walk? What is race walking to you? Like what drives you to keep the passion for the sport?
well, I haven't finished what I want to do, and I'm very task oriented. So I really haven't finished the shoe. I never got to the Olympics, and there's a part in my brain that still thinks I have a chance. And I'll be talking about that on my deathbed. It's like, but wait, I have a race this weekend. I can't die yet.
You know,
I haven't finished it yet. I don't know any better, I guess. So
that's
yeah.
funny. I think
Yeah.
I know many fellow runners and people I used to train with, and it's funny. I think sometimes there's two groups, and there's the group
Yeah.
that win the races, get to the Olympics,
Yeah.
and sometimes they'll go in, they retire and go fishing, or they do something
Right.
else. And then I speak for myself, especially where, I won a couple races, but I was often second or third, or not
Yeah.
the fastest. I was amongst the group,
Yeah.
had dreams of Olympics, never got
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It makes you, I think, hungry.
Yeah.
You're still
Yeah.
searching, you're still chasing
Yeah.
after something. Yeah.
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 Always trying to refine. And there's more of me out there. I know because I talk to them. They call me all the time. They love that I have a shoe that might shave some time off there. And these older walkers are seeing times that they haven't seen in a long time in my shoes, and it's very exciting. And it does me good too. It does my heart good when I know that I've made something that kind of takes them back in time to some faster days on the track. So hopefully I can do some more of that. There's lots of stuff on the horizon I have yet to do, and I'm just gonna see where it leads. So
Well,
I've got to finish down the road.
well, maybe this isn't the first podcast chat we do. We'll have to see what comes up afterwards. So
All right.
I love it.
Well, I look forward to updating you.
Perfect. Now, where can people find out about you and your coaching and your shoes? Where are we sending them?
Well, I have a YouTube channel with 50 videos. Reshod Walking Shoes is on YouTube. So subscribe, hit the um, notification button too, so you get notified when new videos come out. But I have lots of videos on there that do technique drills. I talk about shoes on there. A lot of information. I'm doing a series now on buddy workouts. So I
Nice.
just posted the first one today. I've got 5 more in the hopper. But they can buy the shoes online at reshod.com, reshod.com. I'm getting my website upgraded, so that should come out in the next couple of weeks. So I'm pretty excited to launch that. And I think those are probably, of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, the usual social media, but YouTube and my website are the 2 best places to get a hold of me. So
And I can vouch for the YouTube videos. They're great.
thank
For anybody
you.
looking to learn how to race walk or improve, they're a great source. Just because as well, you can read stuff online, but when Coach Carmen's showing you some stretches or some exercises or drills, or just seeing the race walker in action, it's great for people, especially those learning. So
Thank you. They're fun to do.
exactly. Well, thanks for everything, and I'm sure we'll be walking and talking soon.
Thank you. Thanks for what you do for our sport too, Noel.
Well, I try. I've got a passion just like yourself, I think.
Well, keep it up. We appreciate you.
Bye.
All right. Good night.
That's it, folks. The end of the podcast. No walkers have been harmed in the recording of this podcast. And of course, at the moment, we have no sponsors or supporters at this point to fund all this amazing podcasting. But if you're out there and have a race walk company that produces some sort of race walk apparel product or something you think race walkers would love, get hold of us. We'd love to have you on board. Give us a holler.